All right, Aaron, I guess we'll go ahead and get started since it's 6. We'll have a few more people join us right here after we get started. But thank you all for joining us tonight, and should have a really good topic for y'all. Erin Bell is our one of our farm management specialists. She covers our area, and she's really good at helping people come up with business plans and really get into the nitty gritty of the financial side of the farm. So happy to have her here, and Erin, thank you for agreeing to talk on this for us.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you good if I go, Cody?
Go ahead.
All right. All right. Well, first, glad to have you guys on tonight. My name is Erin Bell. Like you said, I am part of what's called the Manage team, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we do here in a minute. But it's kind of neat. This is actually my first time speaking to a homestead group, so it's a little bit different for me, but I'm excited to talk about some of the business aspects of homesteading and even farming. Something that I've recognized is over the last several years, we have a lot of beginning farmers moving into the area, which is awesome. But a lot of times these farmers are, or producers or homesteaders, whatever you want to call them, they're kind of falling in this gray area. They're not homesteaders completely, but they're not running a farm business entirely either. So there's this weird gray area. And so I'm hoping to kind of help you all think through what you are and what you want to be, if that makes sense. So we'll go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is what I do. So I have been with the Manage team for about the last 3 years, but before that, I was an agricultural agent in Jackson County, Tennessee. So if you guys know the Gainesboro area, that is where I started my career with Extension. But what the Manage team does is it comes in, there's about 8 of us across the state, and we focus specifically on farm finances. So anything to do with record keeping, with budgeting, with business planning, with taxes, all of those different financial aspects, that is what we come in and help farms with. So again, there's about 8 of us across the state. I'm sure there's people from all over the state on this Zoom or watching later on. So make sure check out our website and figure out which one of us is in your area. We each cover about 10 different counties. But again, you've got your agricultural agents in the county. They're going to help you with the production side of things, and then we come in and help with the financial side of things. So as far as our programs go, under the Manage team, we have several different programs we host across the state. And I did want to mention these, and I know that this is a homestead group, but I did want to mention these just in case they were of interest. So as far as the one that probably would help you all the most, it would be UT Farming Fundamentals. So that is for beginning farmers specifically. So it kind of covers just the basics of getting a farm started, what you need to do business wise, what you need to do production wise. So it's a very good entry level course. So we've got our UT Farming Fundamentals, and then the other one I wanted to mention was our Master Farm Manager class. Now, this is, I kind of call it the big brother of UT Farming Fundamentals. So it is going to be if you're an established farm and you're just wanting to get more business help, get a little bit more into the specifics like filling out a balance sheet, writing a business plan, things like that. That's going to be our Master Farm Manager course. So I did just want to mention a couple of these in case you wanted to check them out, if they would be helpful. So before we dive into things, a little bit about me. So my husband and I, we have been married for just over 10 years now, and we bought our farm back in 2018. He was prior military, so we spent some time traveling around, but we're super excited to get back home. We settled in Bethpage, Tennessee, and we have our farm here. And we actually just had our little girl a few months ago, so a lot of changes going on the farm, but we are loving it. But we ourselves are beginning farmers, so we have had a lot of successes and we have had a lot of failures. So don't feel like if you're on here and you're homesteading or starting a farm and you've had some flops, do not feel bad. I think anyone getting into homesteading or farming, that is kind of how you learn. You learn by failing and learning from those around you. So we've really enjoyed our time with our farm and we are definitely learning every day. So I want to start. just by almost having you all ask yourself some questions. Because again, like I mentioned before, there are kind of two different groups that we're seeing. We're seeing homesteaders, and then we're seeing those wanting to start an actual farm business. And then there's the weird gray area in between. So, first thing, I want to describe the difference between a farm business and a hobby or a homestead. A lot of times our team will get calls from homesteaders, they're asking, how do we file for farm taxes and all these different things? And it turns out that they're not actually a farm business. So I want to specifically describe what a farm business is. So, according to the IRS, because this is who we go off of for this, as far as filing taxes and things like that, you are a farm business if you are profit motivated. So, if your goal at the end of the day is to make a profit, then you are considered a farm business. Now, to get even more specific, the IRS wants to see that you're profitable every 3 out of 5 years. They don't have to be consecutive, but they want to see that you are making a profit. If you have 5 years total, at least 3 of those years you're making a profit. If they start seeing big losses year over year and you're filing those big losses, they're more likely to kind of like look sideways at you, and you may get audited in that case. So again, we define a farm business as someone who is creating an agricultural product and they are selling it at a scale to where they can be profitable, whereas a hobby or a homestead farm is more for personal use. And I forgot to mention at the beginning of this, and I'll pull the chat up, but if any of you guys have questions as I go through this, throw it in the chat box. There's only a few of us on here, so if you want to ask out loud, that's fine too, but I'll make sure to keep the chat box open, because I know the hobby farm business stuff can get confusing. So just remember, if you're profit motivated, you are a farm business. If you're not, you're a hobby or a homestead farm. So a few things, let's say you, I don't want to say end up getting audited, but let's say the IRS is trying to figure out if you're a farm business or a hobby. So a few things they're going to look at, of course, what I mentioned before, that you're profit motivated. Something else they're going to look at is if you have super high off farm income. So if you're, breaking in 400 grand a year, but then you're filing big losses on your farm, that is something that's going to flag them. They're also going to want to see that you're keeping separate records, so separate financial records. What I mean by that is the same checking account that you use to go to Sam's or Food Lion or, McDonald's, all those places. That checking account needs to be separate from your farm checking account. So you want two separate ones. Don't intermix your farm business with your personal, because that's something else the IRS does not like. So this is very, very easy. You don't have to use a separate bank. Just literally open a separate checking account for your farm and just run all of those transactions from that. Something else they're going to want to see is that you are continuing to learn and educate yourself so that hopefully you are trying to make a profit. So something like this class, that would be something you could record to show them like, no, I am trying to better my farm and make a profit. And then the last thing is they will want to see a farm business plan. And again, it's not that you're going to get audited. We just know that if the IRS does look at you, these are kind of the things they're looking for to determine if you're a farm business or a hobby farm. So again, I focus a lot on beginning farmers. So a lot of what I do with beginning farmers is just brainstorming, trying to help them figure out what they want to do and how they want to do it. So when you're just starting out, one of the first things, and some of these questions probably seem very, very silly, but I cannot tell you how many times I've sat down with a beginning farmer. And again, I can say this because I'm a beginning farmer myself, so I am guilty, but they will list out 50 things they want to do, but when I try to get them to narrow it down to just a few, like, what is your core? What do you actually want to do? They can't answer the question. And it's really, really hard to get a farm business going or even a good homestead going if you aren't very clear on what your goals are. So, think about, what is it that you actually want to farm? Are you farming to feed your family? Are you farming to, feed your family and then maybe sell a little bit more on the side to cover your costs? What does that look like? And then also making sure to figure out if you are a business or a hobby, because you're gonna have to do different things if you are a business. And then this last one, what do you want? Who are you? So this is just kind of a funny joke, but I have this tea bag that I keep in my office, and on the little sticker it says, "What do you want? Who are you?" And that's kind of something I've used with some of my beginning farmers who are struggling and figuring out what they want to do. So another thing I'll do if you're just entering this space and you're trying to figure out what you want to do and you're having a hard time is I call it discovering your waypoints exercise. So this is just where if I was in a class setting with you, I would have you write down your big picture vision. So let's say, in 10 years, what do you want your farm to look like? You would literally write down every idea you possibly had in those 10 years, what you wanted to do, dreaming big, all the things. From there, we would go through and identify your goals. So maybe one of them would be, get a 10 cow herd going, maybe get some milk goats going, maybe start, a beehive. So we would identify those goals, prioritize them in level of importance, and then figure out implementation steps for each of those goals. So again, this is not something we're going to do on here, but it is a great exercise to do at home with your family to really help you guys figure out what you want to do and which one is more important. And this, I'm actually talking, if there is anyone on here who's wanting to start a farm business, this is a big one for me when I'm talking to someone about it. Because again, a lot of times when people are getting started in this space, they're very scattered. They have a hard time prioritizing and they end up going down all these rabbit holes and never making any progress. So I try to minimize that when I'm working with someone. And one way I do that is when they want to start a farm business, after they've written this big fancy business plan, I ask them to write in a short paragraph what their farm business is and to write it in a way that a child could understand it. What that makes you do is it makes you simplify and focus in on exactly what you want to do instead of chasing rabbit holes. Because with farming, that is very, very easy to do, is just to get distracted. So this is another idea. Again, we're not going to do it on here, but if you and your family want to sit down and do these exercises, it is a really good way to help you narrow down your focus. All right, so we're going to get away from those types of things, and I wanted to talk with you all about some specific things that you need to do business wise, regardless of if you're a hobby farm or a farm business. So these things are greenbelt designation, ag tax exemption, farm insurance, and a farm number. And we will go through each of these specifically. And again, if you have a question on one of these, feel free to throw it into the chat box. I do have it open so I can see it. So again, this is for, if you're a homestead, if you're a farm business, either way, these are things you need to be looking at on the business side of things. So the first one, greenbelt designation. So what this is it lowers the tax value on your land so that you pay lower taxes each year. And it's very, very significant. So if you have 15 acres or more and you produce $1,500 worth of something from your farm, you can qualify for this. And a lot of people get confused. They think, is the $1,500, does that have to be profit or is that just income? So with this, it is just strictly income. So you could, if you sold one cow off your farm for 2,500 bucks, that would cover this requirement. It does not have to be profit. So keep that in mind. Now you do have to have a 15-acre minimum. So I know that may knock some people out because I know there are a lot of smaller homesteads going up 5 to 10 acres. But if you do have the 15, I definitely recommend making sure you get under the Greenbelt designation and get those land taxes lowered. The way to do this, if you're not sure where to go, is to go to your county tax assessor's office. And I would suggest just going in person. Typically, the people there are very friendly and will help you fill it out. And it's something you can fill out in just a few minutes. So again, Greenbelt designation does a great job of lowering your taxes, but you do have to have that 15-acre minimum. All right, ag tax exemption is something else I like to talk about because again, a lot of people think I have to have a big farm business to have this, and that is not the case at all. It's very similar to Greenbelt as far as the requirements. You have to sell a minimum of $1,500 worth of farm products off of your farm per year. And again, that is just strictly revenue. It does not have to be profit, so fairly easy to do. So if you meet those requirements, you can fill out the sales and use tax exemption form. I've got the link down here at the bottom. It's through Tennessee Department of Revenue. The form is very, very simple. It's one page, easy to fill out. Send that in, and what that does is it will get you tax exemption off of ag products that you need to operate your farm or your homestead. So let's say if you go into TSC and you're buying feed or anything like that for your goats, your horses, your cows, you can get that tax exempt. So same for horticulture supplies, irrigation supplies, any of that, all of the taxes would be removed off of those products for you. So again, you don't have to be a big farm business to do this. You just have to have $1,500 worth of sales in something. Any questions on the ag tax exemption before I move on? Okay, good deal. So this other one, I've met with several homesteaders who just don't think they need farm insurance because they feel like they're not an actual operating farm, and that is definitely not the case. Having good farm insurance is incredibly important, regardless of whether you're a business or a homestead. Really, the things to be thinking about is all the different structures you have on your farm, making sure you're covered for those. We've got a horse barn that we actually built ourselves. And if that thing blows away, we definitely want to make sure to be able to replace it. So we make sure that all of our tractors, our commercial mowers, any of our structures, everything is insured. And something else to think about is crop and livestock insurance. You can get that through FSA if you're doing any kind of big crops or livestock. Something else that kind of falls between the cracks is life insurance. I know that's not a fun topic to talk about, but we have the rule here that we wanted to make sure if something happened to me or my husband, that the farm would be able to be paid off with that life insurance policy so that neither one of us would have to sell if something happened. So that is something that we do. And I highly encourage you guys to do the same thing. So life insurance is another big one that we don't talk about a lot. Liability coverage is another big one, especially if you're doing any type of agritourism on your place, or if you're having anyone come onto your property and pay for something, you want to make sure to be covered because that's when things change. Once they start paying you and they step onto your property, that's where liability becomes big. So keep that in mind. So there's a lot of good different farm insurance agents and groups out there. I know Farm Bureau is the big one, Country Financial is the big one. So just make sure that they are familiar with farms so that they know to schedule certain equipment in the insurance policy. Just make sure that they're familiar with farms so that they know the lingo. So any questions on farm insurance? All right, so the last one is your farm number. So I get a lot of calls of how do I get a farm number? Where do I get it? What is a farm number? So the farm number is utilized by USDA. You go to the Farm Service Agency office to get it. So with that, just go to your local FSA office. They will identify your farm under a specific number, and then that is how they identify your farm anytime you apply for programs. Now, I know that this is a homesteading group, so you may not be doing, farm loans or crop insurance, but you may apply for some of their conservation programs. I know they've got a lot of different programs for, pasture management, being able to get seeds for certain types of things, pollinator programs. So any of those you will still need an FSA number. So if anyone tells you, go get a farm number, this is what they're talking about. Just go to your FSA office and they can supply you with that. And then from there, you can apply for different NRCS conservation programs. So that's also a big question that we get. All right, so now kind of moving into if you are a farm business, what are some things you need to think of initially? And again, I know this is a homestead group, but if I've got people in here who are kind of on the fence, you're in that weird gray area, you're homesteading a little bit, you're thinking of selling some things. So you might be kind of crossing that threshold. I want to make sure that you know some of the first things you need to be thinking about as you enter the business space. So one of the big ones is going to be your ownership structure. So figuring out, now that we are a farm business, how do we want to operate? So fun fact, if you file a Schedule F, the IRS is just going to automatically deem you as a sole proprietorship. And I would say 95% of the farms I work with are simply sole proprietorships. So you don't have to get very fancy with this. Unfortunately, I've had a few people call me saying, I've opened up my LLC, I have my business license, and I'm ready to farm. And I'm like, oh, you didn't need either of those to get a farm business started. So there are some things out there telling people that they need to open an LLC to run a farm business, and just know that those are not true. You can operate just simply as a sole proprietorship. Another one, I don't have it listed on here, but this is how my husband and I file. It's called a qualified joint venture. And that is where both my husband and I file Schedule F together. So it's like a partnership without having to do the partnership paperwork. So if you're married and filing and you guys want to be equal partners, choose the qualified joint venture because that's a great option. So as you're entering the business space, do make sure, do your research, figure out how you want to operate, figure out what you need to operate as. I try to keep people in the sole proprietorship or partnership range as often as I can, just because once you start getting into the LLC space, paperwork gets more and it gets a little bit more complicated. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to do it. So when I start encouraging people to apply as an LLC is when I start to see a lot of risk involved. So, for example, let's say I had a cow-calf operator. They've been a sole proprietorship for the last 20 years, but they have now decided to do some agritourism on their farm where people are coming, they're paying, they're maybe buying fresh meat, things like that. Once that risk starts to go up, that's where I start to say, like, okay, we need some protection. We need to go ahead and move forward with an LLC. So I kind of say you get deeper into that, the more risky you get. But if you're just, like us, we sell hay and a few other things like that, there's not a lot of risk. People aren't coming out here. They can't, trip and fall in a hole. We're just a sole proprietorship, but once you start getting more risky, you're going to want to start looking at an LLC. This is a wonderful publication I have up here. You can actually just Google it. It's by SARE, but it's business structures for farmers specifically. It's my go-to. Even when I'm helping someone, I will refer to this publication as far as what they need to do. So great resource, and you can just find it online for free. So something else to think about if you are moving into the farm business space are the different funding opportunities you have. So I know we talked about NRCS. They've got some great conservation efforts. They also have things like the EQIP program that can help you with cross fencing and irrigation. You also have FSA if you're looking for an operating or a land loan. But again, this is if you are trying to become a farm business. So again, they're going to want a business plan and things like that. Farm credit is another good resource if you're trying to purchase some land. I know a lot of people who work with them. The Tennessee Ag Enhancement Program, hopefully someone's mentioned this to you all, but it's a fantastic cost share program for Tennesseans involved in agriculture, all the way from people involved in horticulture to livestock. They have an array of different things they can cost share with you as far as supplies. Now this program, it's open every October, but again, you do have to be a farm business to apply. They will ask you for a Schedule F, so keep that in mind. But again, once you move into that business space, more funding opportunities are open up to you. So make sure to take advantage of those. CPA, Center for Profitable Ag, they have a great running list of funding opportunities. So I think Cody said he'll share this presentation, and then you all can just click on this link and it'll take you right there, and you can see all the different opportunities out there. So I know y'all have heard me mention the Schedule F several times now. So real quick, what that is the Schedule F is profit or loss for farming. It is what you will file tax-wise if you're a farm business. So you file this every single year. Very, very simple form, but you can see it over here on your right. You report all of your different types of farm income, all of your expenses, and then you show your net profit or loss for the year. So a lot of programs like TAEP, they will require you to show that you have a Schedule F done just to make sure that you're actually operating as a business and that you're not just a hobby or homestead operation. So I did want to explain as well. I get the question a lot of, you know, with a farm, that income, let's say that we do have a net profit, how is that taxed? So the best way to look at it is almost to look at it like self-employment. You're employing yourself on your farm. So because of that, you'll have the self-employment tax that comes out at 15.3% because again, you're not working for someone else who's paying these taxes, you're working for yourself. So you've got that self-employment tax, which is Social Security and Medicare. They take 15.3%. And then on top of that, they will also take out your income tax. So whatever income tax bracket you are in, they will take that out as well. And then of course, if you're not profitable, they won't take anything out. So you don't have to worry about that. But again, this is the form you will fill out if you are a farm business. So the last thing I wanted to hit on as far as what you need to do if you're just getting started as a farm business is to just mention the business license because again, I have gotten so many calls over the last year of people thinking they have to have an LLC and a business license to open a farm. And again, that is not the case. So almost all the farms I work with, they do not have a business license. That is required if you are selling retail items that are not farm products that you have produced. So do check with your county clerk, your city, group. Make sure that you don't need one, but most of the time that you will not. Now, if you, let's say you have a farm store, I know a lot of people have those in front of their house, they'll have this little stand with all kinds of products in it. I see them all over the place right now. They're definitely becoming more popular. So if you are selling products that you have raised in that farm stand, you don't have to worry about sales tax at all. Now, if you start bringing in other products that you have not raised or produced and it's over 51% of your sales, that is when you have to start looking at sales tax because you're moving out of agriculture and moving more into retail. So just keep that in mind. But for the most part, you guys are not going to need a business license, so don't let anyone convince you that you do. All right, any questions on those last few things I've talked about before I move forward? I know I'm kind of hitting a lot of different things. I just want to make sure to cover just kind of the basics of what a farm business looks like if you move into that space. All right, so next we're going to move into just some things as a homesteader I think are important. Again, I'm used to speaking to farm businesses, so this is a little bit different, but I think it's just as important. So a lot of times when I'm meeting with a farm business, what I'm helping them with is getting their record keeping straight. From there, helping them create a budget so they can see, what is profitable and what is not profitable. And then also helping them set prices. I'm not going to worry about talking about setting prices with you guys, but I do want to talk about record keeping and creating a budget because I think that is very important as a homesteader to do as well, especially if it's something that you're doing full time and you're putting a lot of effort into. I think there's this misconception that homesteading is easy, and it is not. I actually think homesteading is one of the hardest things you can do, but very rewarding at the same time. So I do want to walk through what record keeping could look like for you and what creating a budget could look like for you so that you can know what you're putting into your homestead and what you're getting out of it. All right, so what is record keeping? So I could never really find a good definition of what record keeping is. So this is just kind of something I've put together over the years. But record keeping is the act of logging important characteristics of your farm that are measurable and help you make sound management decisions to improve the health of your farm business. So this could be financial records or production records. They are both equally important. So let's talk about financial records. So these are items related to any financial transactions you have on your operation. So any expenses that you have, any incomes, loans that you get, your interest rate, taxes, budgets, if you do financial statements, how much your insurance costs, any of those things can fall under financial record keeping. So the main thing with this is keeping up with your expenses and your incomes. So the benefits of keeping up with your financial records, and I think this is the case whether you're homesteading or a farm business, but to monitor those expenses and incomes. You know, sometimes I've had people tell me, I'm going to start raising my own chickens. Egg prices are high. I'm going to raise my own chickens so that I don't have to buy eggs from the grocery store and I'm going to save a lot of money. But then at the end of the day, when you look at what those hens cost, what their coop cost, what their feed cost, all of a sudden you realize that, pack of eggs that you have is way more expensive than it would have been just to go to the store and buy them. So I think from a homesteading perspective, keeping up with financial records, just to see how much you are putting into those products is important. It can also help you figure out why you're homesteading. So if you're homesteading to save money, it may shift how you do things. Or if you're homesteading as a personal preference, it's a lifestyle thing, you're not worried about the cost, it can help you look at it at a completely different way. So when it comes to financial records, it's just, again, I think it's great whether you're homesteading or an actual farm business. Now, production records, these are going to be things like your seeding and fertilizing rates. It's going to be things like choosing the right variety. That's very, very important. Um, Simple example of that is I've been to several places or even homesteads that, want to grow their own fruit. I'll get there, I'll see, all these different fruit trees and I'll start asking them what they are. And they'll say, well, this is, Gala or Honey Crisp. And I try not to make a face, but I'm like, oh no, that's not good. Just because those varieties do not do well here, but it's what you can find at the store. So making sure that you are researching your varieties, whether it's produce or fruit, whatever it is, find the right varieties for this area that you don't have to spray a bunch of stuff on. And that is something, again, if you're keeping up with production records, you'll know, hey, these varieties do great, these varieties do bad, and you can switch them out and get the right one for you. Something else to keep up with, if you're doing livestock, average daily gain is very important when it comes to, whether you're doing meat birds, whether you're doing cattle, pork, any of those things, making sure you have a really good average daily gain on those animals. You may need to shift your feed or the mix that you're giving them if you're not hitting those average daily gain goals. So again, production records have to do more with the types of varieties, your labor hours, your seeding and fertilizing rates, whereas your financial records have to do more with your incomes and expenses. So when it comes to production records, I think the greatest benefit of doing this is that it helps you make an educated decision on your breeds and your varieties. I can't preach that enough, all the way down to I just went out to a sheep farm the other day and they had started out, I can't remember the breed they started out with, but they had just switched to St. Croix, I think is what they were called. But they're very, very resistant to worms, to all of those different things. And so they ended up sticking with that breed and they love it so much more. And they're having a lot better success rate with their lambing and all of that because they chose the right breed. So again, keeping up with what's doing well on your homestead and what's not doing well can help you shift to the products that are going to do better for you over time. Something else as well is it helps you with pest disease control, especially in your crops, and then herd health decisions as well. If you've got, um, a cattle operation and you notice, a few of the cows, they don't calf very well, you can swap them out for ones that do well. So production records are extremely important. I think sometimes they kind of get put on the wayside because we're so focused on finances. But again, you cannot have good financials without good production. So I always like to say that both production records and financial records, they work very well together, and you have to focus on both because they support one another. So I want to talk very briefly about some different record keeping systems. And again, this is for if you're a homestead or a farm business. I think it's important either way. So my favorite one personally, and I think for the homesteading group, this would still be my choice. My favorite one is Quicken. It is actually what I use for my personal finances and my farm business. So I've got a couple of different accounts with them, but I use it for both, again, my personal and my business, and I love it. Very, very cheap. I think I spend 40 bucks a year on it. So not very expensive. Essentially what it is an online checkbook. But what it does is it allows you to categorize things based off of enterprise. So for example, let's say out here I've got, horses and hay. I can separate what I've spent on the horses versus what I've spent on hay production in Quicken. So it allows me to see how much I've spent on either enterprise and organize it how I want to. Something else it does, again, if you go from a homestead into a farm business space, is you can tie this to a Schedule F. So whenever I'm going through each month and looking at my transactions, I can actually click down on the category and say which part of the Schedule F it needs to go on. So it makes it very, very easy in the long run. So again, Quicken is great. I use it personally. I've helped set up a lot of farms with this. And again, even if you're not a farm business, I think having something like this helps tremendously because it shows you what you're spending on your hobby or your homestead, because sometimes it can shock you how much you're spending on certain things. So QuickBooks is kind of the next level up. For a homestead group, I wouldn't worry about using QuickBooks, but again, if you're moving into the farm business space, this is also a great option. And then this next one, Excel or Google Forms, I have seen both of these used. I'm a big Excel person. I used Excel for a long time, so I do tend to promote Excel a little bit more. But it allows you to categorize things how you want to, keep up with things how you want to. But keep in mind, Excel is not going to have the same automatic reports like Quicken would have. But I would even encourage you, if you are in the homesteading space, to keep an Excel spreadsheet with maybe the different things that you homestead with. Let's say you've got, milk goats and maybe a high tunnel that you operate. Keep up with those expenses, what you're putting into that, just to see what you're spending versus what you're getting out of doing those things. And then there's the good pen and paper. I always like to leave this one on here because I have been to several farm businesses that have the most beautiful books you've ever seen, and it is simple pen and paper. And I always say, you know, utilize whichever system you're actually going to use. It's not going to help you if you open up some big fancy QuickBooks, but you're not going to use it. There's no sense in it. Whereas if you're going to just have pen and paper, but actually utilize it, then that is what I would rather see you use. So pen and paper, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, especially when it comes to production records. If you're, out there in your garden, you're paying attention to, what's going on with your lettuce during this time of year or how your cut flowers are doing, just writing little notes, jotting it down. I think that is a wonderful resource to help you, especially on the production record side. All right. So from there, again, if I'm speaking with a farm business, we're going to get their record keeping all organized, and then we're going to move into creating a budget. Now, for homesteaders, this is a little bit different, but I do want to explain what a farm business budget looks like and how you all can utilize it in the homestead space. So I'm going to go ahead and just move on to this little chart right here. I'm a very visual learner, so I like to use things like this. It helps me understand it a bit more. But when it comes to creating a budget, there are basically four main pieces that we're looking at. The first one is going to be your revenue. So whatever you're selling off of the farm, that is where it's going to fall into income in that revenue space. Next, you're going to have your different expenses that come out. Now, we split up expenses into two different categories. We have variable cost and we have fixed cost. So with your variable cost, these are going to be things that increase or decrease with your level of production. So for example, if I go from having 5 mama cows to 10 mama cows, you're going to see my variable cost go up. It's going to cover things like feed and vet expenses. Now, with your fixed cost, these are things that do not change regardless of what you're producing. So, for example, let's say we'll just keep running with the cow example. Let's say you are no longer running mama cows, you're taking a break for a few months, you sell your herd, prices are great, you're like, I'm going to sell out. Um, your variable cost will essentially go down to nothing because you're no longer feeding these cows, but you still have your land taxes you have to pay. You still have any equipment that's depreciating. Let's say you've got a tractor, you still have that depreciating out. There are still costs that you have with your farm, regardless of the level of production you're operating at. So that's what we consider our fixed cost. So once you take all of those costs out of your revenue, that's where you get to your returns. So seeing what you have left over profit-wise at the end of the day, and hopefully it's a profit and not a loss, but that is what your returns are going to be. So for a homestead group, this would look different. I would suggest, if you're not selling anything, obviously you don't have any revenue, but you do have your cost. So what I would suggest doing is looking at your cost and figuring out what is it compared to what it's at the grocery store? And is there a way for you to beat the grocery store? So to kind of run through a quick example of what I mean, so whenever we're working with the budget, my main goal at the end of the day is to always help the farm or the producer figure out what their break even is. If they have grown this tomato at the end of the day, what did that tomato cost them to create? So in order to do that, and I've got the equation up here, you take your variable and your fixed cost to get your total cost. Then you take those total costs and you divide it by the total units produced. And that's how you figure out your break even. We are actually going to walk through a quick example of that. So I've been getting a lot of meat chicken calls lately, so I thought that I would use that as an example. So let's say you're a backyard poultry producer, you're doing meat chickens, and you process roughly 50 birds a year. And with that, to grow those birds out, to process those birds, it costs you about $500 at the end of the day for all of them. So what you do, you take those total cost of 500, you divide it by the total units produced, which is going to be those 50 birds, and that is how you determine your break even. So with this, again, we've got that break even, the $500 total cost divided by how many birds you produced, and you figure out, okay, for these 50 birds, it cost me $10 per bird to raise this bird and process this bird. Whereas at the store, if I just went in and bought it, it would cost me $7. So this is kind of where, as a homesteader, you have to figure out what is motivating you. Is it a lifestyle choice, as in you want to grow maybe more naturally produced items for your family? You just believe in the concept of being a homesteader. That is very different than homesteading in order to save money. And that's where I kind of tell people to err on the side of caution. It is very, very hard as individuals for us to grow and produce something cheaper than we can buy it at the grocery store. It just is. And that all comes down to scaling. That's all that it is. For us out here, I can't scale up a cow herd size big enough in order to actually make a profit. whereas other places can. But again, that's not my motivation. My motivation is I want healthier, more natural meat. So that's why I'm going to do it. So just keep that in mind as a homesteader. Think about why you're doing it and just understand, don't be discouraged if you can't produce the product cheaper than you can at the grocery store, because that is very, very hard to do. Now, if you can accomplish that, that's awesome. Keep going. But just don't feel like that has to be why you're homesteading, because I think a lot of people are homesteading for more personal family reasons, and I think that's great. So, I did want to leave some time for questions. I think Cody said we'd be done by 7. But one more thing I wanted to touch on, if you do kind of feel like you're in between being a homestead and a farm business, and you're in that weird gray area, I do suggest you go check out our Building a Farm Business website. It's something that me and a coworker put together, but it'll kind of walk you through the things that we talked about today, but a little bit in a more detailed way. So you can get more information about these things. You can just click on this link here and it will take you there. And again, if you're, even if you're just curious about maybe shifting from a homestead to a farm business, do go to our website, find out the managed specialist in your area, and just talk with us, have a conversation. We talk people through this all the time, and we don't mind brainstorming with you. I also wanted to make sure, um, honestly, the biggest resource you guys have in your county is going to be your agricultural agent. So you've got production specialists right there in your county. So make sure to reach out to them and utilize them. And even if they don't have the answer, because they kind of have to be a jack of all trades, they cover a lot of things. Even if they don't have the answer, they can connect you with the right person. So make sure to utilize your county agent. All right, so we've got a little bit of time if anyone has some questions. And again, this is very open. If you've got any kind of farm business question, budgeting question, feel free to ask and we'll try to get it answered.
For sure. So if y'all got questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat, unmute and ask them however y'all want to.
I have a question. I'm fairly new to Tennessee and trying to figure out what grows well here and what doesn't. Do you guys have any cheat sheets?
So are you looking at vegetables or fruit? What's your
Um, I'm looking a little bit of everything right now. I guess I'd like to plant some fruit trees for sure.
okay?
Even perennial bushes like blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, anything that's going to
Yeah.
come back every year. That's kind of where I'm starting, but I just don't know. I mean, my entire property is like red clay.
Yep,
So
no.
I don't know what does well here and what doesn't, or I don't know like the native plants, just plants in general, what grows here and what doesn't. So
Yes, so I just put it in the chat box, but we have a UT Hort site. So that is University of Tennessee. It's our horticulture site. And if you actually, let me just share it. Forgot I'm sharing my screen. So if you go to the UT Hort site, you will see you can click on vegetables and herbs, fruits, all these different things. We'll click on fruits and it will take you to all of our different publications as far as selection, and
oh,
then,
nice.
yep, it'll take you right to this lovely publication that will help you choose which cultivar is best for you. And we've got that for blackberries, blueberries, all those things. So I think this is probably the best resource I can think of. Do you have any others, Cody?
Well, that's probably the best resource to be able to look at right now. We do have a pruning field day coming up that I'm fixing to send out the flyer for everyone that's signed up for homesteading. Now with that, it is we do have limited spots. We limited it to about 50 people, but we're talking about going up to 75 this year because it fills up so quickly. But at that one, we have Dr. Dave Lockwood and Dr. Annie Vogel, which is our new nuts and fruit specialist, and they'll be coming and having a Q&A during our lunch session. And if Dr. Lockwood doesn't have the answer for the question, it's probably because there isn't an answer for the question.
There,
But he's really good when it comes to fruits, even vegetables within the state. So I would really highly recommend coming to that because we'll also be talking about different varieties of grapes, blueberries, blackberries, apple trees to plant here, and it sounds like it'd be right up exactly what you're looking for.
Yes, thank you. And you'll send that out, you said?
I'll send the flyer out. Just the only recommendation I have is to make sure you sign up rather quickly, since it is a hands-on demonstration class, and we have people standing around and teaching them how to prune these varieties. We try to limit it so that it's not 45 people step just right on top of each other while we're doing it, to make it easier for everyone to see. So,
Okay, thank you.
and then I think Aaron already answered the other question that we had in the chat.
Yes, so it's funny that you asked that, Nicole. So I live in Bethpage, which is right on the Kentucky-Tennessee line. So we actually have a sales tax exemption in Tennessee and Kentucky, and I should have mentioned that in my presentation. So you can have both because my husband and I, we go to Deerfield a lot. It's a big ag supplier in Kentucky, but you had to have a Kentucky ag tax exemption. So we actually applied for both and got approved for both. Kentucky and Tennessee, they're used to working together on that. So it's very easy to do. I've got the form here. Fill that out, mail it in, and you should be good to go.
All right. Does anyone else have any questions? Marissa, you're more than welcome. We're glad that you enjoyed the topic, and we got some good ones coming up too. So definitely stay tuned with us. Any other questions, anybody? Well, if you do, if y'all get off here and think, oh, I should have asked that, feel free to reach out to me and email me a question. And I'll get with Aaron if it's something that I can't answer, and one way or the other, we will find you the answer to your question. So, but thank you all for joining us, and Aaron, thank you for agreeing to speak on this topic. Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. So,
Yep, good deal. All right, y'all have a good night.
yep, everyone have a good one.